from the very beginning. In 1967, I was searching, and I found a leaflet blowing in the wind that looked like a letter, and I picked it up, and thinking I was going to read someone else's mail, and it was "Stay high, no more coming down" leaflet. Tune in, turn on, and drop out. And Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta, and I thought, oh, Swami, and I pictured Prabhupada's going to have long hair and a beard. And I showed up at the temple, and the first picture I saw was stuck in the temple window at 518 Frederick. His prospectus for the Bhagavatam, picture, his passport picture. I was aghast. He didn't look like what I thought was Swami looked like. He looked severe and it was not. I was scared, and I later heard Prabhupada answer. Someone approached him about that photograph or something. He didn't look happy, and Prabhupada said that it was the most ecstatic moment in my life. He said it was my passport, so that he was able to fulfill Bhaktisiddhanta's injunction for him. I remember asking a question, because I don't remember the lecture, but I got from it that he was having bhakti yoga. And so I want to know if one could practice hatha yoga. And he looked at me, and he said, "Hatha yoga?" He said, "Why?" And he, it was serious and severe, and I felt this small. And then he said, "We're, bhakti yogis." And then I forget how he did it. His quality. He said something and made me feel wonderful. And I went every day. I couldn't get the mantra out of my mind. And within a week or two, I was initiated. And I was just getting initiated. And I was scared. I forgot my name during the initiation. I couldn't remember. Even then, my memory was poor. I had to go upstairs and ask. And when I gave Prabhupada some useless things, he said they were useless, told me. It's funny, because you're supposed to give dakshina, or something to your spiritual master. And I was sentimentally attached to a baby blanket, and I forget what else. And he held them up and he said, "These things are useless." And I felt bad again. But the next day, he had used them for sitting places for visitors. And then he found out, he said, "You're living with a young woman?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "That's not good now." He said, "You come live with me." And so from the very beginning. And I guess that started it. He didn't need much doing for in those days. As a matter of fact, he would cook, and devotees conveniently found a way to be in his room about lunchtime, because who was ever there, he gave one chapati with some sabji on it, and it was the most delicious foodstuffs we'd ever tasted. I guess in one of his lectures I got that marriages, men and women remain separate, or the ideal is to be brahmachari. And I said, well, if marriages are arranged, I said, how do you learn to come to love a woman before you get married? And he said, love. He said, love is for Krishna. And he walked to the window and looked down on the street, and he said, you want a woman? Pick one. And I said, no, Srila Prabhupada. In Bombay on one occasion, I've forgotten the life member's name, a very well-to-do and notable person came in to see Prabhupada during massage and brought an expert masseur. And Prabhupada let him try massage on him. I watched, and the man's hands were incredible, and Prabhupada's body was just being better than a machine. It was just the hands. And Prabhupada said, that's all right. And then I took over. And he said, I would rather my disciples. He goes, well, then we could send, and he referring to me, we'll send him to the school and he can learn. And Prabhupada said, there's no necessity. I don't know if he told it directly to the life member, but after the life member left, he said to me, there's no necessity. Yes, he did say to the life member, I want the love of my disciples. And so that's what the massage helped, but it was mostly the love that we had in our hands, not the technique. Before I was initiated, before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was arrested for possession of marijuana and things, and we were busted, and I was going to court, and eventually it came time. I pleaded guilty so the woman I got busted with could get off. And so it was time for arraignment, and I forget, Jayananda brought me to court, and they stood before the judge and they sentenced me. I don't think it was that long of a sentence. It was but 3 or 6 months, but I must have went white when the guards came to get me, and the judge said, you want some time to turn yourself in? And I said, yes, Your Honor. And I flew to LA where Prabhupada was and told him I had to go to jail. And he gave me permission that if I found myself starving in jail, I could eat meat. But I didn't have to. Prisoners were glad to exchange their vegetables for my meat. And those were ecstatic few days. Anyway, it came time for me to leave, and I was scared and frightened. And Prabhupada was sitting on occasion with his legs extended just like this. And so I took the opportunity and I prostrate myself and put my head, grabbed his feet and just put them on my head, just embraced them. And he leaned forward and tousled my head and he says, don't worry, he said. Don't worry, Krishna will let you out after a few days. And he did. The judge, I was in jail, it was horrible. I had called the jail ahead of time, told them that I was a devotee and that I wanted my religious rights and so on. So they made everyone take everything off, but they let me keep my neck beads because I quoted the warden of the jail that I had permission, and the minute they left me alone. But as I walked by the barber shops, they saw my sika and they snapped their scissors and they put you in the shower and delouse you, and big prisoners came up, and I was so scared. But they called me in a few days before the judge, and the judge says, I can't remember the words, but you're pious, and you don't have to stay. And just like Prabhupada said, his compassion actually manifested by, he asked Krishna to intercede on my behalf. And there was a time on Willard Street in San Francisco where he was trying to translate, but there was some noise in the apartment, and he wanted it stopped. And we could hear, there was no noise. It wasn't the outside traffic, it was too late. It was quiet. And we stopped. The few of us devotees stopped and tried to hear the noise. And he said, you don't hear it. We say, no. And we looked everywhere for dripping faucets. We looked, listening to pipes, and we couldn't find it. And then there was a hallway heater. And I looked in and I got down and I saw the pilot light, going like this. And I turned the gas completely off. And Prabhupada from the room said, that's it. So he was very sensitive. And when he heard the doors slam. He said he made reference to that, to breaking his heart. It broke his heart to hear the doors slam. And as Westerners, we'd come and go and slam doors and close them, and it just we learned that you just didn't do that around Prabhupada. We were helping him take a bath, and he went unconscious, and we were in the bath, and we were beside ourselves, and we picked him up, and he came conscious, and Srila Prabhupada, you were unconscious. He goes, no, I was not unconscious, he said. And then he began recollecting stories, he goes, of America. He had such appreciation and thankfulness for the American spirit, and that I saw some tears come. And then he looked and he said, "Do not think I'm crying over." I forget how he said it, but material idea. I was getting ready, and as he was taking, he called me, Upendra, and I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." And he said, "Reach in my pocket and take out the money there." And I reached in, and there were $20, $10, two $10 bills. And he said, "Give one." No, he said, "Give one to your son." And I'm not sure if he said, I had a daughter too at the time. Give the other one to your daughter. I said, "Srila Prabhupada, I cannot take from my spiritual master." He goes, "I am not their spiritual master. I am your spiritual master, and I'm telling you, give that to your children." And then later in Laguna Beach, my son wandered in, and he called him over. He loved children, just loved them, and I think gave him some coins. I once spoke to him about, "Can you speak anything on this tape?" About masturbation. And I was so ashamed. And so I talked to Prabhupada. And instead of being chastised or looking disgusted at me, he said, "We are all accustomed to such nasty habits." But his way of saying it made it small, and why trouble, I remember him asking Gargamuni, "Do you have sex desire?" And instead of saying no, he said, "Yes." And Prabhupada said, "What do you do?" He goes, "I tolerate it." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, just tolerate." I guess you have to get a massage to learn a massage. So a movement that he'd want, he'd massage me, and I understood, and then I'd continue. And he never lay down for massage. I guess it's more sattvic to sit during a massage. You sit and start with the feet and work up, stomach, and then back, and arms, and then back, and the head finally. The head took the longest, and it was the easiest too. It took a lot of energy. Prabhupada could take a strong massage. And I think massage and walking started ardently after his first illness or heart attack in New York. And he could outwalk some of us on the beach. We'd get tuckered out, he'd keep on going.